Namaste, Amit. Welcome to this conversation about homeschooling in India.
Namaste. Thank you.
Yeah. So I've been talking to different types of people who are homeschooling. You know, people with different experiences, varied backgrounds, and we have been sort of in little bit in touch over the years. So I would like you to tell us a story about the homeschooling, and we will try to weave in the other things as we go along about lifestyle and how that ties in with your homeschooling journey. So where did this homeschooling thing come from? Tell us your story, but tell us about your children. Tell us how you've gone about it. How long have you been doing it, and all that.
Certainly, certainly. So both me and my wife, first of all, we have been through the regular schooling system. The usual thing, 10 plus 2, and then I went to do my engineering, etc. So, and both of us were very good students in our time. Yeah, so both of them have, we have done academically, you can say in the traditional meaning, we have been successful academically. But before even we had, we got married, and before when we had our son, this is like back in 2004. Just like other usually, newly married couple, we used to discuss about, what kind of education we would want, and in general, we are just interested in society, like how things work, what is working for the country, not working, etc. So, and this had a topic of discussion, not a debate, but just a discussion between us right from day one. And we were both, we realized that although we were academically successful, the schooling system doesn't really work very well for students. As in, we could see that, although traditionally we had got, the certificate sort of being a successful student all throughout, but there were things that we were not taught. A lot of things, we had to learn the hard way in life. And we felt that somehow somewhere the society or the system, education system, failed us, right? So that is where it got started. And that basically initially, then we started looking for a good school, like what we thought was the definition of a good school, like a school which would provide these kind of missing things, which would go beyond the curriculum a little bit. For example, like, I was passionate to start my own business, but I could see that I had no knowledge of how a business runs, or how to even go about registering a business. These kind of things were not taught. And I was passionate about, so for example, like just looking at the sky and star charts and those kind of things. They were like barely touched upon in the school. And for example, like, we didn't know, for example, like I personally didn't know like what kind of area is being researched on, like, right now, what is the cutting edge of science, etc. Of course, I read a lot, so I figured out on my own, but these kind of things we thought that a school should provide. We looked around a lot, we searched for schools. Then we discovered this alternate schooling movement, which was very hot in Bangalore at that time. And so we visited a lot of schools, and we talked to school management. We went through that process. And that's when slowly, very, very gradually, it started to dawn on us that pretty much nothing that the system has to provide suits us. And yeah, so it was sort of like a slow realization. It was basically, it started with, like we were never really convinced that we want to do something out of school, actually, right? So yeah, but we sort of ended up there because there was no other alternative. If there were a good school, like even now, sometimes I think about it, and like if there were a good school, then I would certainly put my kids through a school. And there are advantages of school, but there were like few important goals that I didn't want to compromise on. So for example, like my wife was absolutely, she was very passionate that kids should have a healthy lifestyle. Like, they should have proper sleep, good meal, and to her and to me also, like that was as important as a good education. Like if you don't have a healthy body, and we could see like, even in our age group, people were getting, sick and diabetic, and they were getting like anger problems and depression at a very early age. So we were convinced that, having a healthy lifestyle is important. And now, none of the schools provided that, right? As in, they start like 7 a.m. in the morning, sometimes earlier, and then kids don't even have time to breakfast. Like, of course, the lunch is, just skipped through, or like very, very rudimentary packed lunch. And then when they come back, they're tired. And so basically more than half of their waking day, they haven't had good food. And a lot of kids, we could see even in our neighborhood, they end up with like, some sort of like stomach problem or something like that. So we didn't want to go through that. So that was very important. Very, very important, like, to have a healthy lifestyle. Second most important thing we were looking for is that, we wanted school to encourage sort of like, self-learning ability, curiosity. All kids are curious, right? And we just wanted that to be maintained and nurtured rather than, snuffed out of the kid, right? So it's sort of a subjective measure, but we felt that school is actually contributing in, sort of diminishing the curiosity of kids rather than encouraging it. The questioning ability, etc. I had been sort of like a rebel, academic rebel in my own days, and I had been through that pain of questioning too much, asking too many questions to teachers and not really following the textbooks, etc. So, but I felt that that's probably a positive trait, that should be encouraged in kids. So these were the two important things, healthy lifestyle and encouraging, kids to develop their own personality, be curious, pursue their own interest. And none of the schools provided that. Like I said, we went through a lot of schools. Then again, we discovered this homeschooling just by accident. Again, in Bangalore. Bangalore at that time, at least, had a lot of very progressive people, many like yourself, who were much ahead in the journey than us. And so we thought, to take a sort of a leap of faith and be out of school. We sent our son to a play school like for a few days, and then he completely rebelled. He didn't want to go. But then we decided that not even play school was worth it. And we basically just continued in the homeschooling mode. And yeah, and initially, on and off, like we followed a schedule, right? We would, and my son also enjoyed that process a lot. Like we would make a calendar. We would, buy all the proper books as per the syllabus. Every day we would sit and study as per the schedule. For Kannada, we hired a tutor, and the rest of the subjects, we taught ourselves. Both of us, like I said, we are academically minded, so we had no problem, guiding and teaching our son. So that's how it continued. And gradually, very, very gradually, sometimes we fell off the routine. Sometimes for months, we would not have a calendar. And but it didn't matter, as in what we saw was that at least our son was continuously doing something. So that was the most important thing. Either he was very deep into a project, or he would read books, end to end, like, one book after another. Or, sometimes we also enrolled him. Say, for example, he got interested in electronics, he got interested in robotics, and he learned those very thoroughly. Then he, at about age 12, little bit advanced age, he got into woodworking. So he learned carpentry. He learned a lot of things on his own. Then for a few months, and then we would again get back to, like, we would panic sometimes, and we thought like, oh, this textbook education, he's falling behind his peers, and then we would get back to textbook and schedule and calendar, etc. So that's how it continued. And then last year, and we were always aware of NIOS. So I was keeping an eye on the Altered India group, and just talking to, like, I talked to you also, and so I was aware of NIOS and the very, very good support that they provide. So we are extremely thankful to such kind of a thing being available in India. And so yeah, so we enrolled in NIOS class 10th, and then he studied maybe for 2 to 3 months. Yeah, because he probably was not like interested in studying more than that. But those 2 to 3 months he studied very intensively. And then he appeared in class 10. That was the very first formal exam for him in his life. So I think we should have arranged some sort of an exam for him before class 10th. I think we probably little bit, like slacked there as parents. Both of us felt a little bit guilty, but my son was not at all bothered. Absolutely. He was extremely confident. And yeah, so he appeared, and now he has finished his 10th. His mark sheet, everything has come, and then we have enrolled in for the 12th exam. So that will be 2 years later. But yes, so that's where we are. And then our younger daughter, so she's 6 years younger to my son. So of course now we have more experience, so we are a little bit more confident. But yeah, as you probably know, all kids have a different personality. Like, she has totally different sets of interests, etc. So she is carrying on her own, but we are a little bit more confident this time.
Wonderful, wonderful, Amit. So, so your son never went to school, right? And
No.
Not at all, right?
Not at all.
So what
No,
about
not to a formal school? Yeah, like I said, we enrolled him in like play school, and then some off school training centers. Like, he went to a lot of classes like electronics, robotics, etc., but never to a formal school.
Right. So and was there no pushback for this decision of yours when you're from friends, relatives, people? You seem to have very quietly gone through this. So what was the reaction from people?
Yeah, I missed that part. Yeah, right. That's a very good question. Yeah. So initial days, I remember, of course, we were very, very skeptical of the path we were taking. So extremely skeptical. So initially, one of my approaches was that every single person I met, friend, relative, colleagues, I used to ask them that, what has been your experience with school? What has been your kids' experience? And I have not been sending my kids to school. What do you feel about it? Yeah. So these sets of questions were basically the only topic of conversation I was interested in for many, many years. So I talked to a lot of people, like whoever I came in contact with. In India, even in US, like, for work purposes, whenever I traveled, that was like something on my mind. What I found was that pretty much, I would say 99% of the people, except like maybe like some few handful of people that I remember very clearly, everybody was positive. So they said that schooling hasn't been a positive experience for us, and what you are doing sounds interesting. They wouldn't be doing that with their own kid for their own reasons, but that is understandable. But very, very few, like overwhelming percentage of people were in support of my decision. And in fact, a lot of inputs I got, what can I do, or etc. One of the most common questions that got asked, the number one question that was asked was, what about socialization? right? So that is, I'm sure you have heard this like many, many times. So I had prepared a standard answer for that, but yes, that was a concern. And yeah, but overwhelmingly, I would say that, there was support. Of course, there was skepticism, but there was skepticism even within me. There were some, sometimes I try to convince people that whatever I'm doing is right, but very rarely. Yeah, I was mostly in the listening mode, because of course, like, we were also never very sure about what whatever we are doing was the right thing or not. Like, after all, it was a matter of like our kids' future. So even today, after being through the journey, I think we are still not 100% convinced that, it is the right thing. And that is why, some time back, me and my wife, we made a rule that we will never recommend homeschooling to any family. It is something that they should discover and they should convince themselves of, but we would never, like, none of our brothers, sisters, cousins, no one is homeschooling, and we never ask them to follow this kind of thing, because it's a tough journey.
No, so great. So I was also thinking while you were speaking that what it does to our children is one thing, and while we are going through it, what it does to us, as parents, we are also part of this journey, right? Which in a schooling kind of scenario gets left out completely, in the sense that there is this constant engagement happening over time, and it's something changes inside us. So has that been your experience, or you want to say something about that, about your and your wife's journey along with this, along your son and daughter?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. I think overall, it has made us better person. I think, firstly, the good thing, the best thing is that we kept in touch with, the latest in educational knowledge, because what we found is that the best way to teach anything to kids is to do it yourself. You set an example. So for example, like, let's say we wanted to inculcate a habit of reading in our kids. So that's why we started reading. We were reading always, but we started reading even more. And then we would read, and we would never tell our kids to read. And then we would hope that, they would pick it up. That is exactly what happened eventually. And then we had to keep up to date. We had to be sharp, just to set an example. Or more, mundanely, I thought that I would have to guide, my son, because he doesn't have a tutor, let us say. But let's say if he has a question in maths or physics, then guide. Although that need almost never came. Yeah, but yeah, we were sort of in the learning mode. I think that's the best thing that came out of it. And then yeah, we sort of also grew with our kids, and we feel more confident, definitely, as individuals.
So I've always been thinking that one of the things that makes us grow is when we engage with something, no? When we engage with life itself. And in this modern living that we do, we have an opportunity to not engage. As parents, we have an opportunity to not engage with our children. We go to office. You say that this is my job, is to go get money for them for the house or whatever. So it's almost like you can get away with engaging half with life. And when we go through this journey, that's what I'm hearing you say also, is that you are forced to pay attention, you're forced to engage, you're forced to, and that's what makes you grow, because you're taking decisions, you are paying attention, you are thinking for the other person. These are all things that make us grow, no? So wonderful. Exactly. I think great. And this story that you were telling, I think that if you can tell us about your why you're in Indore now from Mumbai, I thought that was a wonderful story. I think it'll be good if you can share that here.
Sure. Well, that was, that happened because of COVID and lockdown. So as you know, I was in Bangalore for a long time, almost 13 years. Then I switched jobs and moved to Mumbai. So Mumbai is again like a different sort of city. Now Bangalore is also a big city, but Mumbai is of course very big. and very congested, and sort of it has a very busy vibe. So and then my office was in Mumbai, and but we were homeschooling all throughout, even in Bangalore and in Mumbai also. And my son has all throughout been going to sports and swimming, etc. So he was doing all of that, but no regular school. Then all of a sudden this COVID started in like 2020. At that time actually we were out of Mumbai, we were in Dharamshala. Then we got the news, we rushed back home, and very soon this lockdown started. All through the lockdown period we were in Mumbai, but gradually we realized that being locked in a small Mumbai apartment is not the healthiest way. All of their sports, swimming, everything had stopped. Although we were continuing, the academic part, but it was sort of like, we could see that, they were getting a little bit unhealthy, they would sleep and no physical exercise, etc. So we were starting to get concerned. Then gradually, but of course there was this uncertainty that anytime this lockdown, will get over and we'll get back to the normal life. So of course no one knew that when that would come, or whether this would continue longer. So I set like a sort of a benchmark in my mind that if this continues for more than 1 year, then it's probably going to continue for much longer. If it's going to get over before that, then that's it. So we waited for 1 year, then started looking to move out of Mumbai. So we looked at all the nearby areas, wherever we had been and we were familiar with, like Alibag and Nasik, Pune, Goa also we looked. And but we were basically looking for a place where which would have a little bit more space, not an apartment, but like an independent house where kids can move a little bit more. They would have slightly bigger space. But fortunately, we found one in Indore. Now, Indore was quite a bit, away from Mumbai. But we decided to take the leap of faith. Fortunately, we found like a good house. And we moved, without even, like, we looked at some pictures of the whatever we received over WhatsApp, and that's it. Based on those, we decided that we are going to move. So yeah, so we first sent our stuff and then we moved here. We drove all the way from Mumbai to Indore in a day, so a 12-hour drive. But yeah, everything went very smoothly. Then we came here and settled down, and it took us about a month or so to fully settle down. And even at that time, it was like the COVID wave was going on and off. This is pre-second wave, so after we moved, the second wave started, which was like really deadly. And we knew nothing about the city, absolutely nothing. But yeah, fortunately we live in such a connected world that we didn't need to, like, all the places used to deliver, and we had online shopping and everything. So we settled down pretty fast. And since then, of course, after the COVID thing has, little bit abated, we explored the city and got to find, useful stuff, and they're liking it here very much. So, the air is clean, people are very, very nice, all sorts of facilities are there. My kids, they like the place a lot. There's a lot of greenery, a lot of like, nature places, hiking trails, etc. nearby. So yeah, it's been good.
Yeah,
Let's see where, maybe again the life will take another turn. We may end up elsewhere, but so far, and my office is also like work from home so far. So I've been working from Indore, and yeah.
Now, the key point of the story being that you could do this kind of thing because your children are not going to school. Otherwise, you get tied down because of a school, right? Or so till 12 years of your school, children's schooling, you're tied down to one place, and you are able to just pick up your bags and think of which place you want to go to and move there. So I think that is a great part of your story here.
I had to only think about my office, and that was my only constraint. Kids
Right.
were not a constraint. So yes, that was very fortunate. Yeah, absolutely right.
Wonderful, Amit. Thank you so much. I think we can keep talking, but maybe we can come back later and have a longer conversation about the details of how you went about this.
Sure.
But for the time being, maybe we can stop here.